We're shooting this video in a bleak setting because it goes well with the bleak game. Actually, we're shooting it in here because there's a minor football game going on the field at Tim Hortons Field. But this whole game, the Ticats lost, but the whole storyline to this game is the loss of Zach Collaros.
Absolutely. That's the biggest loss by far. It doesn't look good for him. They also lost their starting left tackle very early in the game. They lost 3 players very early in the game. That obviously affected the game. The replacement quarterbacks, I thought Matthews looked pretty good at the start, but then it just fell apart for him. The inexperience just showed brutally for him, and even for Ja'Cory Harris as well.
Collaros with a suspected ACL injury. Kent Austin wouldn't talk about the severity of that. The speculation is that it's at least partially torn. They'll check to see if it's fully torn. I think everyone is expecting the worst, and I think that was the sense from people that they're expecting the worst news on Collaros.
Yeah, and you sort of got that when all the guys start talking to you right away about how much they support Harris and Matthews as well. So they got the feeling as well. These guys have been around. They've seen ACLs. They've seen all kinds of injuries like that. And I think the other injury to Olsen, I don't. That's a bad one too. But at least he's replaceable by a guy who's played and started. My guess is that Olsen, just from the looks of it, is probably done for the year, and that's a sad thing too because he's come on very, very well. That's the blind side too. That protects the quarterback. Who do you think's going to be the quarterback? If you had to say right now.
Well, I think it's going to be Matthews. I just think that he knows the Austin system. He was been the number 2 guy. Obviously, they'll be very upset about the 2 pick sixes and the turnover in the end zone and the fumbles and all the rest of it. I mean, obviously, ball security is a big emphasis with Austin and with the quarterbacks, but I still think that they'll believe that Matthews gives them the best chance to win.
Well, I think so, too. One of the problems, and now the running game situation, to me, becomes a bigger problem because, when you're going with a younger guy and a guy without a lot of experience, you've got to get the pressure off him somehow, and the running game's a good part of that. Now, maybe he becomes part of that running game. I mean, he's certainly learned. Both quarterbacks who replaced Collaros there learned something, and at least they better have. Watch the way you carry that ball, especially up the middle. I mean, really, the fumble, the one fumble with Matthews was ridiculous. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, he knows that from the time that he's young. 2 of the interceptions, the ball shouldn't have been thrown. The one, okay, so that's an experience. The other one is just, he just threw the wrong side when he was trying to throw it away.
My concern about this whole situation with the Ticats now is the fact that I think it's very tough for quarterbacks in this league to develop without getting playing time, and there is nobody on this roster that has any significant playing time. Obviously, Jeremiah Mazzoli's been here for the last couple of years, but doesn't have any significant playing time either. If you look around the league this year at the quarterbacks who have not had experience playing time, it has been mostly disastrous for those guys.
Yeah, and with a lot of the same results, the picks, the pick six, and the fumbles, and there's been that. Now, I think they've done better, actually, than most years with the replacements, but I think a lot of that has to do with the interference rules and those kinds of things. It hasn't been sustainable. Anybody that's played a good first game has had a problem in the second and third. It catches, and many of them have had a problem in the first game. And, boy, the league right now, 2 guys out of 9 teams, starting quarterbacks, sort of making it through, and that's Bo Levi Mitchell and Henry Burris,
well,
the oldest player in the league.
We've been impressed by Kent Austin's coaching ability through the first 2 years. This is the toughest test that he'll face, bar none, with a team that I think everyone had penciled in for the Grey Cup. Now faces, I think, their biggest challenge that they've faced in these 2 years. I don't know whether or not you could still consider them Grey Cup contenders. What do you think?
Well, I think just because of their record, but based on what remains, there's some very difficult games that were already going to be very, very difficult. I think Austin will coach guys up quicker than we think, but I agree with you. There's a ceiling on that. This is pro football. It's not going to change. I mean, as you pointed out, even Zach Collaros, who's turned – and I agree. I agree with what Austin said here, that this is the best player in the league right now. And to lose him is a killer. But even, as you were pointing out earlier, even when he came back last year, there was a graduated sort of ramp up, and he had some setbacks in his first 2 and 3 games. He didn't really put the lights out like he has been this year. And so if Collaros is your guy, and he had that kind of graduation thing, for the best player in the league right now, then it doesn't look that great. That said, can you win it on defense? Can you win it on defense? And isn't that a funny thing about tonight's game? Didn't it remind you so much what the Ticats have done to so many other people, especially when it's an inexperience? The pick sixes, the forcing the fumbles, the getting the pressure, the hurting, like the driving guys out of the game with injury. That really is a lot of. It's kind of the shoe on the other foot on this one, which is probably the first time that whole thing has happened this year to them.
Make sure you check out Monday's Spectator for all the up-to-the-minute news reporting from Tim Hortons Field. With the Spec, Steve Milton, I'm Drew Edwards.